History is full of things that almost happened. Near misses, close calls, disasters that could have been worse. These five are not those. These five actually happened. Would you go about your normal morning routine, knowing the last thing you'd hear was an air raid siren giving the all clear? Could you sleep through a night, knowing a dam upstream was built with 5 gates instead of 12? What does it feel like to look up at the sky and watch it split in two? 5 disasters. Different centuries, different causes. One thing in common. Nobody who was there saw it coming in time. Most people picture Pompeii as a single dramatic moment. A volcano, an explosion, a city buried. The reality lasted 18 hours. It's called the eruption of Vesuvius. Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius, had been dormant for hundreds of years. On the morning of August 24th, 79 AD, it erupted. A column of ash and pumice shot 20 miles into the sky. For the first 12 hours, it rained rocks, fist-sized pieces of pumice falling from the sky. Many people fled. Many decided to wait it out. By dawn the next morning, those who stayed faced something different. The eruption column collapsed under its own weight. 6 pyroclastic surges raced down the mountain, hot clouds of ash, gas, and volcanic debris, moving at over 200 miles per hour. The 4th surge reached Pompeii at around 7:30 in the morning. Temperature over 300 degrees Celsius. Anyone caught in the city, inside a building, a doorway, did not survive. The heat reached them anyway, in less than a fraction of a second, not from being buried, from the heat. The plaster casts we see today tell the whole story. They show parents holding children, soldiers still standing their posts, and people clutching their most valuable possessions. Because just before the 4th surge hit, there had been a pause. The ash had slowed. Some who had fled the city started returning home. They thought it was over. It wasn't over. On August 6, 1945, the air raid sirens went off over Hiroshima. They had gone off before, almost every day. At 7:31 in the morning, they gave the all clear. A single reconnaissance aircraft, nothing more. People returned from their shelters. They finished breakfast. They went to work. 44 minutes later, at exactly 8:15, the bomb detonated. It's called the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Hiroshima, the bomb, exploded 600 meters above the city. In 1 second, the fireball reached a temperature of over 1 million degrees Celsius. At the ground directly below, 3,000 to 4,000 degrees. 70,000 people were gone in that first second. 90% of everyone within 1 kilometer. Gone. The shockwave traveled at the speed of sound. It leveled wooden buildings for miles. What the blast didn't destroy, the firestorm did. And what the firestorm didn't reach, radiation did. In the days after the bombing, people appeared uninjured. They went looking for family members. They helped pull survivors from the rubble. And then they collapsed. Their bodies had absorbed fatal doses of radiation without any outward sign. By the end of 1945, the estimated toll reached 140,000 from a single bomb dropped by a single plane on a city that had just been told it was safe. The bomb also left shadows, where a person had been standing at the moment of detonation. The thermal blast burned their silhouette into the stone behind them, not the person, just their shape, in the wall, and then nothing. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, something entered Earth's atmosphere over Siberia, a stony asteroid, roughly 50 meters across. It never hit the ground. It exploded in the air. It's called the Tunguska event. The explosion happened between 5 and 10 kilometers above the Earth's surface. No crater, no impact point, nothing to find, just the aftermath. 80 million trees felled across 2,100 square kilometers of forest, flattened outward in every direction from a single point, all pointing away from it, like the hands of a clock pointing away from 12. The energy released, estimated at 15 megatons of TNT, 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Seismic waves from the explosion were recorded in Western Europe. The night skies over Europe and Asia glowed for weeks afterward, bright enough to read a newspaper outside at midnight in London. An eyewitness 60 kilometers from the blast described the sky splitting in two, a column of blue fire, then a flash, then a wave of heat strong enough to knock a person off their feet, and he was 60 kilometers away. Because the explosion happened over an uninhabited stretch of Siberian taiga. Only 3 people are estimated to have been injured or lost. Scientists calculated what would have happened if the trajectory had been slightly different. If it had arrived 4 hours and 47 minutes later, it would have detonated directly over London. No bomb, no warning, no wreckage, just the shape of a city. And then nothing. The Banqiao Dam was called the Iron Dam. That was its reputation. Unbreakable. It's called the Banqiao Dam failure. It was built in 1952 on the Ru River in Henan Province, China. Designed with Soviet assistance. Built to withstand a 1-in-1,000-year flood. During construction, a Chinese hydrologist named Chen Xing reviewed the plans. He recommended 12 sluice gates to handle extreme flood discharge. The recommendation was rejected. The dam was built with 5. On August 5, 1975, Typhoon Nina made landfall on China's coast. Normally, typhoons weaken once they reach land. Nina didn't. It stalled over Henan Province after hitting a cold front. In a single day, it dropped over 1,000 millimeters of rain. That was equal to the entire region's average annual rainfall. In one day. The dam had been designed for a 1-in-1,000-year event. What arrived was estimated to be 1 in 2,000. Workers at the dam formed a human chain, trying to shore up the embankment by hand. At 1 a.m. on August 8th, the dam failed. The breach was 300 meters wide. The wall of water that followed was 10 kilometers wide and 7 meters tall, moving at 50 kilometers per hour. It had no early warning system ahead of it. The phone lines were down. Over the following hours, 62 other dams in the region collapsed. One after another, 26,000 people drowned that first night. An estimated 140,000 more. Over the following weeks, from disease and starvation, the Chinese government kept the details hidden from the world for 30 years. The official documents weren't declassified until 2005. Most people have still never heard of it. In October 1347, 12 ships arrived at the Sicilian port of Messina. People gathered at the docks. Most of the sailors were already gone. The ones still alive were covered in black swellings, oozing blood. Authorities ordered the ships to leave immediately. It was already too late. It's called the Black Death. The disease arrived in Europe from the Black Sea trade routes, spread by fleas carried on rats, aboard ships, along roads, through markets. Symptoms appeared within days. Fever, swollen lymph nodes in the armpits and groin, dark, painful growths the size of an egg. Without treatment, 80% of those infected were gone within 3 to 5 days. In 1347, there was no treatment. In the town of Givry, a friar recorded 28 funerals a year. In a normal year. In 1348, he recorded 649, half of them in September alone. In Hamburg and Bremen, 60 to 70% of the entire population. In Norway, 60%. In Florence, the city lost 50,000 of its 85,000 people. Across Europe, estimates put the total mortality between 30 and 60% of the entire population. Some regions higher, some villages simply ceased to exist. By the time the first wave burned through, the European population had roughly halved. It would not return to pre-1347 levels for another 150 years. And it didn't stop there. The plague returned, every 10 years or so, for the next 3 centuries. The first outbreak was not the worst thing. The worst thing was knowing it would come back. 5 disasters. A mountain that gave people 18 hours to decide. Most of them decided to stay. A bomb that arrived 44 minutes after the all clear. An asteroid that missed every city on Earth by a matter of hours. A dam that was built with 5 gates instead of 12. And a disease that took half a continent and then came back for more. None of them were invisible coming. Vesuvius had been trembling for days. Hiroshima had been on the target list for weeks. The Banqiao engineers were warned. In writing. Years before. The Black Death had already flattened the Middle East before it reached Sicily. The warning was always there. The window to act was always there. And in every single case. The window closed. And if you made it this far, I'm guessing you liked what you saw. For more of this, hit subscribe. You know where the button is.